No, the crew. No, the crew. We know that.
No, I'm talking about this.
Oh, this too.
Yeah, these are. These, don't try this at home.
Yeah, definitely.
These are professionals.
Definitely don't try this at home. This,
Pay attention to
I know.
this is the most perilous part that can go wrong. Don't try this at home.
But really, what bring this down to maybe the level of everyone who is passionate and curious or interested in this topic, but just kind of feels a little helpless about this. What do you see going on? And David, I'll ask you as well.
Well, I think, so in writing the book, it wasn't just about, for one, we wanted to chronicle all the trends that we were seeing, be able to tell the story of all these different communities that are going through these issues, but also talk about the positives and the solutions, the innovative work that we see going on, because there really is a lot of smart thinking around these issues that could be replicated, that could be lifted up and shared with other communities, which is what we've been trying to do through the book and also through the website that it's confrontingsuburbanpoverty.org, where we've continued to share case studies of good models that we've seen across the country, but also offer things like data resources, an explainer video, an infographic, different things to help get the word out, because a lot of this is information and education. And even just an individual resident of a community or a region, by having this information, this knowledge, and being able to start conversations, that's a huge first step, because so many people do have outdated perceptions that it just takes being able to talk to people and widening the conversation to say this isn't just over there, it's not just those people or people that you don't interact with, it's your neighbor, it could be you, it's happening in communities across the region and across the country, so we have to think differently about this. So I think it's really powerful just being able to put that information out there and bring people together.
Back in our quarterback conversation, you were kind of indicating that we're human, so we do what's in our best interest, but we might be starting to figure out this is in our best interest to do something about this.
Sure. One of the ways I think, and linked to this idea about why we're all in this together, one sort of demographic reality we have to keep in mind is that our retirement system, Social Security, is a pay-as-you-go system. So it's a pass-through. It's not, when you pay your taxes, it doesn't go into an account for you when you retire. You're paying for your parents' retirement right now. So the children that are born now are going to be paying for your retirement when you retire. And in 1965, the number of workers per retiree was 5 to 1. And now it's about 3 to 1. And when I retire in 20 years, it's going to be 2 to 1. And one of those two, now both of those workers are going to have to be hyper productive, right? Because they're carrying a heavier burden to support that retirement generation. But one of those two will be Black or Latino. And we have to really be asking ourselves, are we making the right investments now for those children born now? So that when we retire, the system is going to hold together because everyone's going to be productive enough to support that. And in other words, we just can't afford poverty anymore.
I cut you off at least once and called you the wrong name. Unbelievable. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
But I felt like there was maybe a little more passion in there that I was putting a lid on. So I know you have a list. Is there something else you wanted to make sure we touched on?
I've just been taking notes, but I agree. I agree with what you are saying, but I go back to that public policies and it's going to take all of us to be, it's strength in numbers, to go back to our elected officials and so on, to say, wake up, Missouri. And not that we are not, it's going to take a long time. I was just telling someone that for us in St. Charles, we had a planning and zoning ordinance that was not conducive to building affordable housing. It took us 18 years to change that ordinance, but you have to work at it. And the way it worked was once everybody stood up and came together to the table and said, this is unacceptable. My child is graduating from college, and my child cannot stay in this community because cannot afford it. Once those realities, and that is very real, we're not only talking poverty for those that are poorly educated or whatever reasons, we're talking poverty among the educated. It is a change of, like we said, a suburban shift. The public policy must change or come up to what reality is, what's happening. And so that is what we are working very hard in St. Charles, to have the municipalities at the table, to have the county executive at the table, surrounded with the non-for-profits that we're very active in what's happening in the state of Missouri. It takes every one of us, that collaboration and cooperation, to make it for it to have a successful.
Well, yeah, and public policy is not going to change because we all of a sudden have a lot of enlightened elected officials, right? They're not going to have an epiphany one day and say, aha.
An oxymoron.
That's right. So the challenge becomes, how do the collective we, right? What can folks do? Part of what folks can do is pay attention and realize, let's pick three things. Medicaid expansion in the state of Missouri. There is not one economist that said that's a bad thing, we shouldn't do it. Every economist said that is an absolute winner for everybody, short-term, long-term, how you look at it. And we, John Doe Public, let the state, let our elected officials say, we don't want to do that, because there could be something bad down the road. And we said absolutely nothing. Nobody said, hey, you should move forward, other than former Senator Kit Bond, who, with the Missouri Chamber of Commerce, no one else said it. The second thing, Missouri ranks 47th, 48th in, and we talked about this at the conference today, in providing resources for pre-K education for low-income children. That's just unconscionable. If we know that when you invest in our children, they're going to be successful. And we, the collective, we have allowed the state to hover in the high 40s in doing that. We've also talked about, how do we find resources to make sure that our kids can eat during the summer because they're poor? Are we really saying that we have to push our elected officials to say, hey, it would be a good thing if our kids ate this summer? And the reality is we do. And again, it's the collective we, right? It's not those of us who do this for a living every day. It's those who it's not really my problem because my refrigerator's full. If we don't compel other folks to join us in the battle, to change the idea of how do we take care of each other, recognizing that we're all going to benefit from it long term, we're going to have the same conversation with another group of folks in another decade from now.
And as a guy who's kind of made a living, I kind of have made a living doing the politics of it, Elizabeth and I were talking about earlier, is there a way, and I don't believe there is, to shape public policy outside of the political context? And we've had this notion over the last 30 years where we've denigrated the public sphere. And then we have these, I call it romantic notions, that somehow not-for-profits and well-meaning people can collaborate, volunteer, and come together and make a structural dynamic change in a community. And you can't. It just doesn't work like that. That the governmental process defines the regulatory environment, which then dictates what the policy environment is going to be.
Do you agree, public policy guy? Not to cut you off.
Absolutely, actually, we do agree. But it's not that government is going to tell everybody what they do. They're going to set up a context which encourages and incentivizes people to do what needs to be done, right? And I absolutely agree. But it's been 30 years of government bashing, and somehow people think we have to have government. There's no such thing as a civil society without a government and a set of rules. Laws are like hedges, right? They keep us moving in the right direction, not banging into each other. And we have a situation here where, in many cases in St. Louis County, I think it's like we have, there's a lack of government because the government unincorporated, it's so fragmented, it doesn't have the reach, it doesn't have the capacity to really do what needs to be done. And in fact, that can be very oppressive. Edmund Burke said, the most oppressive form of government is a weak and feeble government. Right. He was a conservative, right? You have to have a strong government for people to feel free to really address these issues.
Again, in the collective, we haven't pressed our public officials to do what's in our best interest, short-term, long-term, right? We've allowed it to kind of be in this, benign morass, right? We haven't said it's no longer acceptable, and we're going to expect more from you, right? And the expectations will be followed through with, if you don't do what we like, there's going to be another guy who we could put in your place if you don't live up to our expectations. But we all have pulled back, and said that's not really for us, that's somebody else's concern. My life is okay, right? Paying my bills, my kids are okay, everything's kind of all right. I don't have the time to get engaged. I'll be on Facebook for an hour and a half tonight, but I don't have time to get engaged in a conversation about the well-being of this community that I live in, and not acknowledging it has an impact on me and my children if I don't get engaged.
Because we'll hopefully see everyone here again. We may not see you guys for some time, so I'll give you the final thoughts here to you, David, and then Elizabeth.
Well, I just think there's sort of, what is amazing to me, because I travel the country and have these conversations in a lot of different places, and I'm always amazed at how there's talent and leadership everywhere. And if you get a chance to see the St. Louis County strategic plan, it is one of the best documents I've seen, where it summarizes all the things we've been talking about, how you have to focus on the needs of people, the changing the places that they live in, and providing them opportunities to sort of live the best life that they can. You have examples like Chris and his organization. You've got leadership from the academic community and schools and local government, and so it's just been a real honor to be here for this visit, so thanks.
Anything that we missed that's glaring, that's bothering you, that you want to make sure is said before we go off the web?
Well, I feel like it's so important to have these conversations, to understand the challenges, which are so complex and obviously growing and is touching more people in more places than before. Well, that's so important. I also don't want to end on this note that there's nothing that can be done, because I do, like what David is saying, I think there are really positive strides being made in communities across the country. I think there's a real opportunity to do things differently here in this region. If you get the right partners together, even with the complex challenges in the suburbs here, there's a lot of good work, like Chris and a lot of people around this table are doing, that we can build from and really make a difference. And that's what should be motivating us, is this is our opportunity now. You know, we're 50 years on from the war on poverty. We can look forward the next 50 years and say, we're going to do things differently. So 50 years from now, we're not looking back and saying we missed that chance, and now we have all of these challenges in suburban communities that cities have long been dealing with. This is our time to do things differently to the betterment of suburbs and cities alike.